I wanted to make a video about what makes a great marketer because I don't know, I just thought about it and I was, thinking about the old Jordan Belfort sell me this pen story where he brings a pen to a guy and then he says, "Sell me this pen." Now, that's one tactic used for sales that allows people to see whether the person who's a salesman basically is indeed a good salesman. Because if that person is a bad salesman, they'll just say, "Well, this pen is made by Bic or something like that, and it's blue and it like is solid and all that kind of stuff." Whereas the point of selling the dude this pen was exactly asserting the need for the person to write. And that's an important aspect of sales that you can actually retranscribe to marketing. So, if you want to be a great marketer, I'll keep it with the pen equivalent and just assess the needs of not the individual that you're trying to sell to this time, but rather um, an average of the audience of people that may purchase a pen. So once you assess the desire, the wants, the needs of the average person who would want to buy a pen, which is most people actually, that can be offices that don't 100% use the internet to write stuff down, that can be schools, universities, that can be administrative offices for paperwork, whatever. Or that can be for leisure purposes like writing notes down on a notepad, just the old fashioned way. And now that you have an assessment of your audience's reason to purchase a pen, which is to write something down on paper or on anything, on a wall even. I mean, it can be used on any surface at all. Then you would make sure to appeal to that desire or need or want or whatever by associating the person with the desire and that self image that the product brings. So, for example, I already thought of it in less than 5 seconds, but I kept talking for the whole lot. You would write a nice caption saying, "Write your future story," with a picture of the pen. And I'm giving the pen example in marketing because it's precisely difficult to, in my view, promote tangible items that can be used for, well, just about very few purposes actually, and that don't dramatically change your life. In 2025, you can just live your life without having a pen. It's not really gonna change much, but even if you actually need a pen at some point, you would like go to the administration to sign a paperwork or whatever, and you would just ask the person for a pen. Same if you go to the bank and you meet up with your bank counselor or advisor, whatever they call it in English, you would ask that person for the pen, and then you would borrow that little pen. So it doesn't really matter anyway. But that's a little side tangent. What I wanted to say when I was making that point is it's a simple object. It's hard to say a lot of things about that sort of, item. It's way easier to just promote, I don't know, coaching. Like, for example, if you're a dating coach, I really wanted to be a copywriter for dating coaches. I outreached hundreds of dating coaches, which was, I gotta admit, an unsuccessful endeavor, unfortunately. Maybe this could have, launched the rise of a successful copywriting career on my end since 2023, who knows. Instead, I just got to, being a copywriter for things that I found utterly mundane and boring. But to give you the example of the dating coaches before I carry on to my experiences, say you're a dating coach and you wanted to write an Instagram ad, something like that. Let's keep it very bateau. What's the English word for bateau? Bland. You would use it like very bland ad just for the sake of the example. Can't get dates. I would say can't get laid really, but censorship. Here's the proven method to getting a successful dating life and securing one date per week minimum in little time. There you go. In that example that I just thought of at the top of my head, you got minimalizing pain, maximizing pleasure, and by pain, that is minimalized, I mean effort being minimalized, okay? People don't want to jump through hoops unless, and I mean unless, it's a sort of premium thing that you would have to prove that you're worth it to deserve, but that's a whole other aspect. That's why they do type forms on things and they say, work with me, apply for. We all know that it isn't a fucking job interview, stop lying to us. They're just trying to look premium. The point is, minimal pain, maximum pleasure, how to get from suffering point to dream state. That's all marketing is. And if I were to be a dating coach, that's what I do. I know my thoughts are completely scattered. I'm not even like making notes, scripting, or anything. I'm just free associating, so this may not be very structured. But you see, the ad that I made right there came from the top of my head. And the focal point is, if you want to be a good marketer, you have to just think of something in less than a minute. You don't have to, think it over and just try to tweak things a lot. It's just like when you're doing sales. If you're trying to sell a book on eBay or even on fucking Amazon, who knows? But if you're like selling a book by Shakespeare on eBay that you had since high school and that you don't care about anymore, then you would just write like, I don't know, Macbeth by William Shakespeare, and you would make a little description of, the book. You don't really need to say a lot about it, but the point still stands that the idea for the description of the thing you're selling took you less than 30 seconds. And you can do that in many things. You can do that. Let me tell you about my personal experiences in marketing. My first copywriting experience was B2B, and my second one too, actually, not including the copywriting work I've done for myself, which was the most satisfying, of course. My first B2B experience was a cold calling, prospecting agency where they were just hiring freelancers to, do sales calls, really. Just appointment setting, basically, on the phone. And I was running the newsletter for not only the current freelancers to encourage them to work harder and give them new, professional opportunity offers, but also I made sure to, do little advertisements to bring in people to a webinar, but also made sure that the people and the fans were constantly warmed up into wanting to be quote unquote hired for the phone calls, so to speak. And this was boring as shit and unpaid, but it taught me a valuable lesson. And the lesson was that I don't need to take so much time to do something as simple as an email. The same could be applied for my other professional experience when I was working for a B2B, essentially marketing agency, but also consulting firm, really, that deals with the AI and all that kind of stuff. And in that, I used to do something very simple. I mean, very simple. I don't know if this the exact terms, but basically, like you're writing captions for LinkedIn, for Instagram, and you're doing the newsletter setup and all that kind of stuff. And on the first day, with the person I was working with, in true girl boss fashion, and all due respect to her, was all like, we need to make this fancy and polished and all that kind of stuff. So she really wanted this slogan put on the front page, like on the first slide of the carousel on Instagram. And I said, okay. And then I just did that exact caption. And then she said, well, no, actually, maybe you should change the font, and maybe the background color, and maybe this and that. But at the end of the day, it didn't really change much. And that's the point of why I was saying that the most important part is to just think of your marketing idea in less than a minute, because that's where the core of your message will really shine, resonate. You don't need to do all this polishing of your message. Look, if you don't have many followers, it's not that little tweak that will suddenly change everything and make you suddenly viral. And likewise, if you're already famous, it's not that little tweak that will really be a deal breaker whether or not you have it. So just focus on the center of your message and take as little time as you actually require, because you're not building a statue. You're just making a post on social media. You're gonna be alright. Don't do something half-assed either. That's not what I'm saying. Of course, have good grammar, spell correctly, actually make a marketing impactful message. Like learn the mechanics of marketing and what makes people buy and what hooks people's attention, so that you don't actually waste time writing captions that are just self-praise that nobody cares about. But I guarantee you, actually I don't, because I don't even have a stake in it. Just trust me, bro. If you just content yourself with doing the thing that works and taking as little time as 1 minute to do a caption, then you will spend less time dabbling on Canva. And that's it for me today.